And CEO of Huntsman Corporation and the Huntsman Foundation, which we'll be talking about today. It's donating $150 million toward trying to solve the many challenges related to mental health. Good morning to you.
Morning, Cabral. Very good to be here.
Thank you for being here. For those who may not know what the Huntsman Corporation does, what does it do?
Well, we started as a petrochemical company, but if I can just give you 2 or 3 basic applications. If you think of a Boeing 787, we have about 21 tons of composite materials to make the plane lighter, per plane, to make the plane lighter. And if you're driving a BMW, you're seated on our seats. If you have foam insulation in your house, conserving energy, you're using our products. So over 100,000 different applications that are used around the world.
So we couldn't do it without you. That's what it comes down to.
Well, I'd like to think that, but we have a lot of wonderful associates around the world.
And you call the Woodlands home, in the foundation that is an extension of what you and your family does, has for many years donated to charities and properties, things that make a difference in society. What's the initial purpose for that foundation, and how has that changed through the years?
Well, it was really brought about to relieve human suffering. Was what my father, who passed away 2 years ago, he took all of his ownership, my parents did, and some of us in the next generation have done likewise, and put it into a foundation. He started about 25 years ago with a $10 million gift into cancer research, and that has since grown into a $3 billion investment from outside sources, inside sources, and now we're obviously going to be continuing our efforts in cancer care and research, but this is a new initiative that the second generation is starting.
So it's $150 million that you announced recently to establish the Huntsman Mental Health Institute with the eye on research and treatment of mental illness. Now that is a big deal. Why that particular area?
Well, I think think about where we've come in cancer research, genetic studies and so forth. When you start comparing cancer research and mental health, what we really know about the brain, what we really know about human behavior, depression, bipolar depression, anxiety, and so forth, it's safe to say that we're decades ahead in cancer research than what we are in mental health. You look at society today with your previous guest talking about the poverty. You look at teenage suicide, which is the #1 killer in many parts of the United States, the opiate epidemic and so forth. So much of this ties back to our mental balance, our mental well-being. And so this is an opportunity for us to raise awareness, to improve clinical support, and also make sure that we're looking at the best treatments available.
I noticed that the focus of in specific areas that you hope to be positively impacting is going to make a difference throughout. At one point I was preparing for this conversation. I said, well, let me pull up some video of the many faces of mental illness. And the reality is, there is none. You can't do it because you can't tell when someone next to you may or may not have mental illness. To illustrate that is really kind of difficult to do. And so it has a long-term implications for families, businesses, and schools, and much more. Now that your foundation is taking on this challenge, what is it you will look for to see what kind of quantifiable differences are being made? How do you measure any kind of progress is being made by the institute that you're starting?
Well, that's a very good question. I think first thing we need to be looking at is how do you raise awareness? Again, think back 20, 30 years ago when we got into cancer. If you had cancer, you didn't go to the workplace and talk about it. Now you go to the workplace and people wear a ribbon, people support you, people are aware, people understand it, they know it's not contagious and so forth. In mental illness, do you have coworkers that say, I'm having a bad day today, I happen to suffer from X, Y, and Z? We don't even talk about these things. So first of all, programs like yours, just raising that awareness is very important. But we particularly need to be focused in on that teenager between 16 and 30 years old. Again, that's the #1 killer in a number of states across the United States. And that is where people start to leave college. They leave the workforce. They are unable to do what they want to do because of mental illness. So we need to be attacking it at that age. We're going to be focused specifically on college age, high school age, suicide prevention, and looking at some of the best and brightest minds doing research in that area.
How did you get to that point? I mean, what kind of, obviously you did something. I mean, some sort of research that indicated that that area was the area that was most vulnerable for mental health illnesses, and that maybe those are the most productive ages of our society as well. Is that part of what went into it?
Without getting too personal, I would say that it's a very intimate family experience. My immediate family, my wife and I have 8 children, 16 grandchildren. We've had experiences within our own family. We're blessed with means, and yet you go around the country and say we're gonna get the best treatment. Many places don't have any treatment. And you look at our insurance programs, they don't look at this as being cured. They look at it as being treated. Insurance doesn't cover the cost for mental illness. A lot of people, the vast majority of people who suffer from it can't afford the basics. And you look here in Houston, in a metropolitan area of 6.5, 7 million people, you've got the Menninger Center, maybe 1 or 2 other areas. But you look at an area this size, it's 1 in 4 people suffer.
We talked about this before we start taping. And I talked about the fact that many people who are fortunate to be able to have resources to do certain things don't have to do this. But you and your family, the philanthropic scope of what you're doing is just wonderful that you're doing. Now, the initial investment for the Huntsman Mental Health Institute at the University of Utah, but I understand your goal and your hope is that this is going to be the genesis for what will be a nationally recognized center, and hopefully other states and other communities will mimic this and try to do what they can as well along these lines.
Absolutely. Look what we've done with again, I hate to keep bringing up cancer. We look at what we've done with cancer, and we have a nationally recognized institute we built up in 30 years that now rivals MD Anderson, which we think is one of the finest institutions. What we learn there and what they learn here, we cooperate, we learn from each other, we hire from each other. We need to be doing the same thing around the country with mental illness. They're just, I wish I could say that they're similar to cancer. There may be 20 NIH institutions like MD Anderson around the country, Sloan Kettering, so forth. We don't see that in mental health. But what we see, we're going to be able to spread out very quickly. There's nothing that's going to be proprietary as to what we're investing in. We're not doing this for a for-profit. What we learn here will rapidly be implemented nationwide, and especially in an area such as Texas, where you have large centers of population, you have a very vast rural population. With the internet, with digitization and so forth, we have tremendous opportunities to make a difference today, more so than ever at any other time.
How patient do you think we need to be? One of the challenges with all of this stuff is, okay, we're going to start working on this now. We should have some information, some cure or something next week or next month or next year. This doesn't sound like it's going to be a quick fix, but it's something that we put the time into it can make great dividends.
Basic treatment and therapies, we ought to see change relatively quickly. Research into new medicines, that's a multi-year pipeline. You look at a lot of the basis of a lot of the medicines today that treat mental illness. You're talking about medicines that were developed in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s. And again, think of cancer. If we were dealing with medicines that were 10 years old in cancer, we'd be saying, you're in the Stone Age for the treatments. Yet, again, with mental health, we go back decades, and not a whole lot has changed in a lot of the pharmaceuticals. There's misperceptions. There's just a lot of bad out there that's impeding this.
Well, we'll start it with our conversation today about awareness, and hopefully you can take information from this. I'm going to put all the information about your institute on my website so people can go to that and get information as well. Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you for what you're doing as well. Thank you.
All right, before you know it, Martin Luther King Day will be here.